my current live feed, they'll all be starting to line up now. It is a standing start for the race. We don't do the rolling starts because standing starts, in my personal view, are that little bit more exciting. So everyone will be getting ready to go very shortly as we see them all starting to line up here. Gordie did try and sort out his livery on that Mercedes, by the way. It just wasn't quite sorted in time. So that will be ready for the next round. But look at some of these beautiful. Look at them. All so pretty. Oh.
Standout liveries. The thing that we all know is that a good livery gives you at least 2/10 of a lap.
Of course.
So without that, there's not much hope.
They are all,
although that said,
on the grid. It's going to go off very shortly. Oh, it's tense, isn't it? Can you feel the tension? This is tense.
We're about to see the inaugural Blue Streak Esports Sim Racing Championship take flight. Hopefully not literally.
Think I might have a trouser accident, but let's here we go. The engines are ready. Stu with his head in his hands as we're about to go, and we're away. Everyone is off and running on the run down to that first corner. The mid pack, they're all nice and gentle. No one wants to get into no one's wanting to get into any tangles here.
And as starts go, a good start, but fairly polite. Fairly polite as starts go, wouldn't you say?
It's interesting that they were polite. I was expecting a bit of argy-bargy. So we follow through.
It's not that exciting yet. But they've all managed to...
Everyone on stream, watching them come through Eau Rouge, I believe, on stream.
That's correct, yeah.
And as you can see through Eau Rouge, Gordie has already started pulling out a gap for himself. And if we look back there, third and fourth place there? I believe that's Nikolaj and Luke King. Luke's going up the side there, look.
And Luke... This is where Luke's racecraft and track positioning know-how from his current exploits in the Super Cheap TCR Australia. This might play into his hands a little bit because it's a lot more about jostling for position in TCR than it is potentially in some other championships, and it's quite interesting. But there's a bit of a gap opening up.
There is.
Gordie,
I think, is starting to pull himself away from... I say pull himself away, he's not... He's had that little gap, but that's it. It's not going any further for him, is it?
No, he found himself a nice rhythm, sat out the front, and is just keeping it consistent. Because what you don't want to do right at the beginning of what is an hour-long race... What you don't want to do is fluff your lines in the first couple of laps when you are under no pressure, because that is something you look back on later on in the day and say to yourself, could have done better there. That was an unforced error, to use tennis parlance. So
I do think there's a bit of management here. They were discussing it before. Obviously, they went into their practice sessions about their fuel and their tyre deck. So I think although Gordie's got that gap, I think he'll manage it as best he can because he doesn't want to sort of ruin his race too early on. But Nikolaj...
And I think at this... And I think there might be a couple of battles further back as well. So as we look at Sebastian and Ashley, that is something that is starting to hot up a little bit. So just see it at the back of your shots.
It is. What we're going to see as we come through Eau Rouge, we're going to have a bit of a fight at the top of Eau Rouge, I believe. I think we're going to have a bit of a four-way coming through this next lap. This might end in tears.
You have got a Lambo, a Ferrari, and a Mercedes, all jostling for position.
I think that's what Luke, Sebastian, Ash Marshall has made up places. Tony as well. They are having a fight along that straight, look.
They are not messing around. And this is where you could see a real battle ensuing for valuable points potentially. So if you're tuning in and you're there in the chat, Liam, what does the point system look like? What are they fighting for during this first round?
Yeah, the point system is laid out very similar to Formula One. So you've got your 25 at the top, 18 per second, and then down from there. So they have that sort of layout. There are points all the way up to, believe it or not, 18th position, as we do expect some other drivers to sort of join us in guest spots throughout the season as well. So they are going to be scrapping for decent points through this, as we're watching them still go. Look, Ash try and go around there, and he's got him. He's got him on the inside. He's done him on the inside through that chicane on the top. Well, that's quite impressive. Remember when I said to you, Ash had a master plan, and you doubted me?
I mean, not to be pedantic, but I think I doubted Ash more at that stage, because you've got to have some serious foresight. But do you know what? I think you might be bang on the money there, because that is some serious racecraft. And important to note, if you're watching this, it's ever so slightly delayed. But I'm with you guys in the chat. I'm with you guys and girls. We are there.
We're trying
together.
To bring you the commentary as you guys are seeing it, just to sort of keep with it, because it's not fair to hear us telling you what's happening ahead of time.
If it makes you feel any better in the chat and those of you watching, although I, as previously stated, have a golden toilet, I'm watching it in exactly the same time as you are. So that makes you feel any better. So it is only Liam, my presenter in chief here, who is ahead of all of us, and so you should be, being the orchestrator and the organ grinder of Blue Streak. It is your privilege, nay, your right, to know more than the rest of us.
Very much. And this, I'm enjoying this midfield battle. This is up my street.
It's really tight, and it's really tough to call. No one seems to be worried about the impact that this might be having on the tyres, the impact that it's having on their fuel, the impact that it might eventually end up having on the well-being of their cars themselves. And they're going for it. They are gunning for it. And that's what you want to see.
Exactly.
You could easily sit back.
But, I'm seeing Tony just hang off the back of the mid-pack. But it does look like Luke King and Ash Marshall are not caring. They're just going to go at it.
Yeah, they're definitely embroiled in what can only be described as some sort of prior disagreement about track positioning, because they seem to want to swap almost every minute of the second. So it's quite an interesting little play that we have here, because these two, as we move through the championship, they could be right up there. Certainly, you'd expect Ashley to be up there as much as anything, but Luke, being a very capable real world driver, will not want to give up any kind of position, championship points, or podium possibility. So
I think what Luke's doing though is in his should we say stead to sort of impress and get ahead. This might be costing him on his tyres, and his fuel, because he is pushing. And Ash will be pushing with him, so this could be interesting as we get further into this race.
And there's an awful lot to play for, but it's beautiful just to see these GT cars dancing. It's motorsport ballet through that incredible.
I'll let you take us through this part, Stu, because you're viewing it along with the rest of the streamers, and you're going to like what's coming. You are going to like what's coming.
Here we go. We have got the Ferrari of Luke King coming up through the chicane, and he's done the job. What?
Look at that. Nice clean move, wasn't it, down the inside there?
And anybody watching this, that is racecraft. That is how to, respectful but competitive racing. Would have been easy just to turn the steering wheel ever so gently there.
That wasn't. Here was me saying, "Oh, he's hanging. He's going to be pushing too hard." No, he's hanging back, sussing out his competition before making his move. He knew where Ash was going to be a bit slower than him, and he's absolutely used that to his advantage. Let's say, going through that chicane and then down that straight.
And this is the interesting thing where their tyres might be in different positions in terms of where they are along their life. You know, the Mercedes, although still through the back.
That's it. I think from what our chat's saying, Stu, everyone seems to be following along with me. It does appear to be you behind everybody else at the moment.
Oh, well, there you go. I mean, again, not something I'm not used to. You know, and I think if I stay 2 or 3 strides behind everybody else, then at least I can see the lay of the land, and I get to taste it second time round, which is ever so sweet. But
Gordie Mutch is just absolutely flying ahead of everybody here.
And we've stopped talking about Gordie because he's just pretty much
such a gap.
Owning it.
What we're looking at now, though, Stu, as we come through, it does appear that Ash has got some more stiff competition coming up behind him in the form of that Lamborghini.
He's struggling with the Italians. He's struggling with the Italian cars. That's
all. He's trying to pull away. But I think I think you're right. I think that Mercedes has got a definite pace problem in comparison to these Italian cars around Spa.
And it could well be that the Mercedes comes into its own as we head towards the tail end. It's could be factored towards looking after itself based on the longevity of the race. It could just be that he knows that this is a race that has got time in its legs, and what's the point in taking risks and pushing too hard at an earlier stage?
Let everyone burn themselves out and then go from there. Yeah,
exactly. You know, let everybody get it out of their system. You race the race you want to race, and I'm just going to carry on sticking to my game plan. Thank you very much. And there's nothing wrong with that.
We do have an event at the Nürburgring Grand Prix track coming up, and I do expect that Mercedes to go well round there. German track, German car, they'll be used to it. So I do think that's going to be a spot where it flies around.
Yes, and we've seen around that GP track in recent weeks just how successful the German cars have been in the last couple of weeks. Overall, it's a place that Mercedes enjoy, so it's not a bad thing.
We had as we come through to the bus stop chicane there, Stu, the Lambo had a half look, which you'll be able to see shortly. I'll say it.
Yes.
It was very much a half.
It was a think about it, though, wasn't it?
It's sort of there. You thought, I had a think, but I thought better of it. I think, if he'd gone for it, it would have been straight to the scene of the accident.
I think so. Now we've been talking about how the Mercedes is potentially struggling in these conditions, but of course our race leader is in a Mercedes.
That is a valid point. As we cut to Gordie as he flies around, and he's currently 3.4, I believe, ahead of Bart Horsten in the BMW. Bart is going very well. To say he doesn't race in a GT car. It's interesting to see him up there fighting, and I think he's just dropped himself back a little bit so that he's not in the dirty air coming off of that Mercedes affecting his car.
And that's the smart move. But when you talk about Gordie at the front has stretched out to over 3.5 second lead, considering after lap 2, I think he was in a 1.9-ish second lead. And creating that gap to the pack behind him.
That sounds right, yeah.
He shows no signs of slowing down.
I think what he's done is he's got himself a manageable gap. He doesn't want to push it too hard for obvious reasons, but at the same time, he doesn't want Bart breathing down his neck and shoving him along. So he's given himself that nice manageable gap where he can manage his tyres, manage the fuel, and it looks like at the moment get himself a cheeky first maiden victory in our series.
Which, as we know, wins everything that you can currently see in the room you're in right now. So what a prize!
I'm sorry, Stu, you cut out there. Oh no, what a shame! Oh.
But it is quite a. I mean, to be the very first, and for a time the only winner in the Blue Streak Esports Championship. That's a mantle, right? I mean, that is something that he should be excited about.
Oh, definitely. I mean, aside from the absolute bragging rights against all these other drivers, there is prize money that these guys are fighting for, which at the bare minimum at the moment is £5,000, which when you're a real-life race driver, goes a long way to funding your real-life career, especially for Gordie. He currently races Britcar for Praga R1. And £5,000 will do an awful lot towards his sort of aspirations for next season. So it's no wonder he's out there trying to push for it.
It is, to put it in motorsport terms, that'd be a lot of cheddar, and that does make a massive difference. And so it's not just pride. It's not just bragging rights. It's not even the ability to wear what is a very funky Blue Streak set of merchandise.
It really is. I'm currently wearing mine right now, but everyone will have theirs very shortly. They're all out in the post.
And that's all. But there's a lot to play for. And this is why, of all the sim racing leagues, of all the sim racing championships, this is why this is the best. Because we're putting real opportunity in front of incredibly talented individuals, and they are racing for a reason. This is not a Tuesday evening, or in Luke King's case, a Wednesday morning. Wednesday morning. It is Luke King, the Australian TCR Super Cheap, and Super Cheap is the sponsor of TCR Australia, by the way. I know, not just saying he's
not
super
the car.
cheap.
The car is definitely not super cheap.
The car is definitely not super cheap. No, I agree with that. But I think he's 9 hours ahead in the outskirts of Greater Sydney, something like that. This is how these races are getting up early in the morning, because there's something to race for, and that is the key to successful motorsport. And that's why when you're watching this and you're in the chat, that is why you are currently involved in the single best sim racing championship that you can find on Tinternet today.
It brings a tear to my eye. It really does. It's kind words. And yeah, we do have more, as we say, more pro drivers that will be coming along in the season as well. So I'm only expecting this grid to get tighter and more competitive. So especially with, I mean, the big one that's missing tonight, in my personal view, is Will Tregurtha. Will is the obviously 2017 British GT champion, currently racing DTM. He's only not here because he's currently in hospital and couldn't get out in time for I believe what they described as a broken nose is probably the best way to put it.
Yes, I think the medical term is broken nose.
Yeah. But when he comes back, because he is fizzing to get on this, he's been talking to me all day. He wants in this so bad, and he will not be happy that he's not getting points from Series 1. So when he comes back for this, expect him to be right at the sharp end and giving Gordie a proper run for his money as well.
Yes, and this is what we want to see. And talking of giving Gordie an easy run for his money, that midfield pack have decided to take a bit of a rest, a bit of a break.
I think we've settled in, haven't we? We've settled into that point of the race now, where they're all sort of playing the longer game now. They've had their bit of a scrap to start off with, and now they're thinking of management and where they can start to push again. And
this is the thing, because with GT racing, they are longer events, so than in terms of the race distance that these cars are expected to cover, compared to, say, for example, single seaters. Certainly in your Formula, and you'll know more about this than I will, but Formula 3s, Formula 4s, Formula Fords, and TCR touring car races as well, where the races are, maybe 20 laps or sometimes 20 minutes, depending on the event and the championship. So for some of these guys who are actually going to be racing physically longer than they'd be used to as well, which adds a mental element to it, where their concentration levels are going to be pushed, aren't they?
I mean, you think Bart Horsten, for example, GB3, he's used to 12, 15 laps around circuit. So to be doing an hour-long GT race is going to be quite new to him, whereas you've got Gordie, on the other hand, who is very used to his GT racing. So you're going to have two different ends of the spectrum. So it's going to be interesting to see how the concentration goes on people that aren't used to this further down the line. And we've got people in the chat now saying they can't wait for their merch.
It's worth the wait. It's worth the wait. It's definitely worth the wait. And you can feel like your favourite blue streak sim racing driver. You can even I don't know if branded masks are on the way. But
I don't know where you're shopping, but there's I'm not sure on that one. Oh, you mean the COVID masks, don't you? Yes, that's what we mean as well. Yes.
Oh, we need those as well. Yeah. Or possibly your favourite Ronald Reagan plastic mask that covers your entire face. But
I do wonder where you're going with this at times now. So, should we go with the Max Mosley? We'll have a Max. That's a racing relevant.
That's a classic. It's a classic. Let's go with the Max Mosley. I do always worry when my mouth opens where the final destination will be, but final destination for the chaps out on track now is going to be relatively obvious. There's not been a jostle of position for a while, and it's nice to see that they've settled into it.
They're having a bit of a pop at the back, Tony and Timo are both sort of there, the Lamborghini versus the Audi. It does seem that Timo is quicker through the mid part of the track, but that Lambo's just got the legs down the straight.
And it's interesting because they're battling in what could be seen as very similar vehicles in terms of their setup, where the stresses are in terms of the mid-engined placement of the power unit, and
I think they're both made by the same company as well, aren't they?
They're both made by the same company.
Audi owns Lamborghini.
Yeah. Depending on your outlook, and Audi R8 is essentially just a little bit of a cheaper.
It's a Lamborghini.
It's a Lamborghini.
In the same way, a Fiat 500 is a Ferrari.
Exactly, it's exactly it. It's matching lines. Where there might not necessarily be any, and in terms of GT racing, they are engineered completely differently. They are not built in collusion with each other, and other than the base units of these vehicles, everything else is homologated in a completely different way. You couldn't just jump into one of these and see it in any other way than a performance vehicle that you couldn't really take to Waitrose. So
I wouldn't mind to go though. Oh, imagine the granny seeing one of these pull up. And just as we said it was dying down,
it's hotting up.
They're having a go again. It looks like Ash is under pressure from Tony, coming through that straight now and heading up through Eau Rouge. So yeah, they're going to have another pop at it.
But Ash just consistently seems to be up for grabs. This is. The pace seems to fall off. And as you say, Tony is really giving him a hard time.
I still think Ash is toying here because he's had a gap and now he's backed off a bit. I think he's conserving some tyre pressure and a bit of fuel. So it's a bit of back and forth going off, and he is just toying with the guys at the back. Look, they're close, but they're not close enough.
And there's a big gap now between Ash and Luke.
There is.
He's going to have to spend some of that metaphorical power that he's had banked through his fuel conservation and his tire conservation. He's going to have to spend some of that credit, right? So when do we think he's going to have to go on the attack? Because it's almost like that's really the only opportunity he's going to get. He's going to have to catch Luke because he's not going to catch Sebastian at this rate.
He can't leave it too
Nikolaj.
long, I don't think. I mean, it's a 2-minute lap round here in these GT cars, so if he leaves it too long, even when he starts pushing, they're going to be too far ahead of him for him to start catching. So he can't be leaving it that late, I don't think.
And I tell you, the other individuals that have almost flown through this entire race so far at Spa Francorchamps under the radar, and that's Nikolaj and Sebastian Norgran. They have just cemented that third and fourth position and are just quite happily getting on with their motorsport lives, their GT lives.
Exactly. They've got their gaps. They're quite happy
getting
where
it
they
done.
are. As we're starting to follow Sebastian here in his Audi. Like you say, this is what I was saying about people that, even though he's not in a well-known series, he can clearly race.
And he's, very, very comfortable. And there's a lot to be said for that.
There's not much. Yeah, there's within touching distance, isn't there, behind? But it's not enough. If anything, there's going to be dirt, for the car behind. So it's not going to be easy to close up on him there. I think Luke will try, but I don't know. It's not going to be the easiest thing to catch up with Sebastian here.
And we're quickly approaching the midway point. And
already, I think flying by this is.
yeah, and you can almost start to see where the pieces are going to fall into place. But there's still an awful lot that can happen. The tyres are going to continue to fall off. They're going to continue to do what tyres do, which is essentially lose themselves in the track. The cars will, however, get a little lighter as time goes on and they burn fuel off, right? But they're going to get themselves to a stage where if they're finding it a little bit too comfortable and they don't adjust for the environment and the difference in their physical / cyber surroundings, we might see a couple of offs. We might see a couple of messy laps.
Just as you say that, Stu, we've just seen Nikolaj go wide going into the bus stop.
Exactly. It's almost like I knew.
Can you tell me what the lottery numbers are going to be for Friday? That'd be fantastic. If you could just drop those on an email, I'll...
I can tell you that they're going to be between 1 and 49. Is it between 1 and 49?
Is it 52 now? I think it's...
I have no
answers
idea.
In chat, people. How many numbers in the lottery?
Unfortunately, I must admit I haven't played the lottery in an awful long time, and when I do, I just go, I panic and just say lucky dip, and that's it. But I tell you what, if Gordie carries on the way he's going here, there's a chance that he will step a 1 inch closer to the lottery win, which is winning this whole thing.
Yeah. Got some more comments in chat for you, Stu. People don't like how professional I sound. So I think that's confusing people slightly. They think you should throw the odd swearing. There might be children watching. We can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, so we always take the professional approach. I mean, both Liam and myself took direct training from Davina McCall in 2003, where we will be live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and we don't say bleep or bleep. I'm afraid it's just not. I mean, not the done thing, because although this is going out live, it won't be going out live tomorrow.
It's all about those highlights next, isn't it? And then having a highlight reel full of bleeps might be misconstrued. It really is. And for those of you who watch the highlights will be available on Is It Fast TV via isitfast.co.uk. Is It Fast if you search for us in YouTube or Facebook, and you'll be able to see highlights and interviews with the participants of the Blue Streak eSports Sim Racing Championship. Now, those are
as we speak to the drivers.
I've not seen those yet, Stu. You've been promising me these for a week now.
Yes. So as we watch the grid lay down some more really impressively consistent laps, we have caught up with a number of the drivers over on Is It Fast, where we don't talk just about how excited they are about being part of this championship. We also talk about what they are up to in their other endeavours across their lives. Because believe it or not, these drivers have got lives outside of doing this, which is weird. But they
Get excited, by the way, Stu. We've got pits. Everyone's in the pits.
We have got pits.
Gordie is in the pits. We've got Bart in the pits. That's Nikolaj. The top three have all pitted.
And do we think that Gordie set the precedent for this? Because
I think Gordie was first in.
And that
Ooh, so this might be now where Luke and Ash all start to come into their own. They
But how long can they stay out? This is the thing. How long can that mid pack stay out before they're going to have to come in?
Well, remember when I
So how much
said
of an advantage?
Ash looked like he'd been sort of nursing things, hence his sort of being, right at the back. This might be why. Maybe he knew they were going to be pushing too much, too soon, too hard at the front, and now he can start to come through and nick these spots.
And that's clever.
This is why me and you aren't racers. We can't think like this. We just can't. We can't do this strategy.
No. Like most people that would like to go racing but don't, we fall back into other careers. I'll talk until I race. I'm always going to be the first at the finish line in that perspective. So that's true. But these chaps, they go into this with quite a clear head in terms of what their strategy is going to be. We have the joy of talking to the drivers before they head out onto track. And I think it's fair to say, Liam, the questions come in the form of a barrage about what they can do, what they can't.
Yeah, they were immediately in making their excuses, and then they were questioning what they couldn't do. So here's why I'm not going to do very well. But by the way, can I do this? It's an interesting way of doing it. Can you imagine a driver's briefing at the tracks? Can you imagine what they're all like together?
I have been party to such a thing.
Oh.
So when the Is It Fast crew are out and about covering championships up and down the country and doing bringing all sorts of weird and wonderful motorsport stories and championships to audiences around the world. That's the most professional plug I think I've ever given.
Beautiful.
We don't have the cameras on all the time, but we do nearly always find ourselves in interesting positions, and we have found ourselves in driver briefings, almost entirely by accident. If you've ever seen the Is It Fast crew out and about in paddocks, our livery, what we wear when we're filming and producing programming, essentially looks like we are a racing team. So we can pretty much walk in. It's the equivalent of wearing a high vis and getting away with stuff. We will walk into places. The driver briefings can be quite a heated affair, as can driver conversations when the clerk of the circuits and other such important bodies on racetracks call them in. It can get quite heated. Definitely X-rated, I think is fair to say.
I have heard from obviously the drivers that I speak to, drivers that I back in real life. Yes, they don't tend to get on with the clerk of the course that well a lot of the time, especially when they feel like they're being picked on, shall we say?
Yes, yeah. Because driving ultimately is it's a team sport with the engineers, with your PR, with your wider team. But then once the drivers are out there, they're on their own, right? And so they have to stand up for themselves. And the clerk of the course is probably not up there on many Christmas card lists. But they have equally a job to do.
It's one of those. You go, you've just finished your day job during the week. You go for the weekend racing, and you're just in for a barrage of insults and anger.
That's the thing.
It's not up there for me. It's a special person that does that job. It's a very brave man or woman. So not quite up there for me. I'd rather watch.
Very, very diplomatic way of putting that. But the drivers are back out. We've seen a number of pits, haven't we? And we've got Luke, who seems to be taking advantage of everyone's pit stops, but Gordie doesn't seem to be hanging around. He wants his positions back.
Obviously, the timings catch up when they cross the lines, but I do think Gordie has taken Luke as Luke came into the pits on the last lap. So I think Gordie just came straight back out, back into lead, banged in another fastest lap, and away he goes.
That is not to be unexpected, let's be honest, because he has been the quickest driver all day. He's been the most consistent driver
so far, hasn't he? He's just been from practice through. He's just been gone.
Yeah, and you can tell that he spends a lot of time in the sim racing world, and that's exactly what we want. We want drivers racing in a physical world because Gordie Spent this season, as you correctly mentioned, in a Praga R1 racing as part of the Britcar Endurance Championship. So no stranger to sitting in a car for a long time. His driving partner, whilst driving that Praga this year, was a certain Abby Eaton as well. So he's learned off of the very best in the business. Abby, of course, who was involved, unfortunately, in a W Series crash here at Spa.
Oh, that was a monster of a crash as well. Thankfully, everyone was all right. But it was horrific.
A horrific smash, wasn't it? So tell us what you thought of that.
It's just the conditions.
What do you think of Eau Rouge as well?
I mean, that was purely owing to conditions. I mean, it looked horrendous, especially for, I think it was Bart's Kavissa, wasn't it? That was airborne then on her side. It was a horrendous crash. But that is part and parcel of racing. You know, when these guys and girls go out racing, they go out knowing that there's an element of danger involved. And I don't think even they would want changes to a track like Spa or Monza, for example. They're historic tracks that people go around. Changing them sort of takes away what they are, especially Eau Rouge. You know, it's one of those corners that everyone wants to go on. Everyone wants to go fast around.
Absolutely, and this was one of the discussions that Gordie and I had as part of his interview on Is It Fast, having spoken about partnering with Abby Eaton in that most recent of seasons in the Praga, and the overarching consensus is motorsport is inherently dangerous. We are doing everything to make it safer. But at the same time, like anything in life, it is impossible to completely and totally eradicate the possibility that something's going to go wrong and somebody will get injured. But they are making changes at Eau Rouge over the next little while, where they are potentially putting gravel back. They're going to push that wall further back as well.
I kind of understand it, but I don't know.
It makes sense. It makes sense. More run. So the corner stays the same. Eau Rouge at its core and at its essence stays the same. And not to forget that in the past there was a chicane at Eau Rouge. So all these things, you know, are open to change. But there's no way that you can make motorsport safe. But as all these changes come through and the track layouts change, this is where a tool like iRacing and a championship that is on iRacing, like the one that we're all watching now, they use lasers to map the track, don't they, Liam?
Yeah,
so it's about as realistic as you can. I mean, I don't think I am as realistic as this track. I've never been used, and lasers have never been shot.
No one's lasered, Stu.
Well, I mean, I have been lasered, but it's you know, I know my legs are smooth as silk, but nothing's been tracked. Nothing's been tracked.
You're opening more cans of worms. There's going to be a matter of time before people are asking for pictures. That is for you to deal with and not me. So, but no, I completely agree. I mean, I think things have been exacerbated in the past, say, 2 years. There have been, I'd describe it as a freak amount of accidents within motorsport just lately.
It's savage.
It's been really strange to have, you know, nothing for 20 odd years, and then it all sort of starts snowballing. I think it really started snowballing from Jules Bianchi's crash, didn't it? And then it sort of moved on from there in terms of safety. But yeah, especially in this past year. So I do understand the need to make, you know, corners like Eau Rouge that little bit safer, but I don't know. It just takes away, for me, what that corner is and what it's about. So, I mean, the sport in general is safer now than it has ever been. I mean, you think in the days of Nikolaj when they'd go out and it would be that they have to accept that it was a 20% chance that they could die while they were on the track. Compared to now when it's thankfully incredibly rare. But yeah, I can understand the arguments for safety and for those people that are sort of more older in thinking and keeping things the way they are.
And Sebastian, just to bring us back to the action, Sebastian Norgren is putting in an absolute slider of a lap. He's decided that today is the day he's going to put his foot down. So he's laying a marker down. But yeah, just to bring it back to safety over at Is It Fast, we are very involved with the world of touring cars, and we have been filming a series following the brand new Cupra NGTC British touring cars being run by Team Hard, and we filmed a piece. There was a huge crash at Thruxton. Car, Glyn Geddy, the touring car driver, should have been dead. It was an incredible smash. We got up close and personal to the car, and you can watch that video over on Is It Fast's YouTube channel right now. Obviously, after this race has concluded.
Of course, don't go anywhere now.
Don't go anywhere now because things are just hotting up. I mean, that is a flyer of a lap. That was absolutely insane, and we just see him wiggling all over the show. But they are absolutely rock solid. And GT cars, similar. They start with the shell, don't they? And they make them safety first. They should be able to roll countless numbers of times, huge amounts of G-forces. Now, obviously, the chaps racing today, if they crash, sure, the car will sustain damage, but luckily no one's going to get injured, other than that famous pride. That's
it. I mean, a few of the guys here have had some interesting smashes over the years. I know Bart was involved in one at the start of this year with Ayrton Simmons, I believe, in GB3, where effectively Simmons was riding the back of the car, his car on top of Bart's, which was quite scary because GB3 don't have the Halo device yet. It's coming in next season, so that was not far away from Bart having to wear a car as a hat. So he can tell you all about that, but it's not one to get involved with there. So we're just watching Bart come around now. He's taken time, out of Gordie. He's gone from a 7-second gap down to 5.7, so he is catching Gordie Mutch.
And that is a gigantic chunk out of Gordie's lead sandwich. And I do wonder, are we going to see towards the tail end of this race at Spa Francorchamps, are we going to see a battle for that first place, do we think?
I would like to think so, but I do think Gordie's got this covered, if I'm honest. He's just been...
Yeah, we heard what you said, Stu, but no.
I think, I do think Gordie has this covered from start to finish. I think if he was going to be passed, Bart's chances were probably in the first sort of 5 laps when he had that, that 1.7 to 2 second gap behind him.
Yeah.
But I now think Gordie has stamped his authority on it, and he is gone. He is just up the road and gone.
He does seem to be in a world of his own, doesn't he? He's doing quite well up there. But let's have a little look through the pack. So we've got Gordie, as we say, cementing his place at the front. Bart Horsten, who is taking a sizable chunk out of that lead, but he's going to have to go some to catch up.
He's really got to go to catch him. Then you've got Nikolaj, obviously in third position there. Going well is Nikolaj, to be honest. To say that he thought he would be slow when we spoke to him before the race.
He really set us up there, didn't he? With his foldable chair. He went, look, I'm racing on a folding chair. This is not going to be the best night of my life.
Damn foldable chair.
Yeah, if he's even still on that chair, he might even have thrown that chair out of a Swiss window and is now freestyling it. But he's very comfortable there, isn't he? He's been sat there almost since the get-go and hasn't really looked in any trouble at all, really.
I think the big surprise for us both, though, Sebastian Norgran in fourth. I genuinely thought, Sebastian, Timo and Tony would be somewhere... I didn't expect Sebastian to be there, put it that way. I thought Ash would be ahead of Sebastian. But he hung on to the back of Nico for quite a while in that first stint, didn't he, before the pit stops?
He did. He was making Nikolaj's life not the easiest, which, as you say, I think that's probably the biggest surprise of the lot, is that although drivers, nonetheless, not hugely experienced in this particular discipline, but he has also made that fourth spot pretty comfortable. And as you say, ahead of the great Ashley Marshall, who has won at this track, races GT cars for essentially a living. It's his jam. Yeah. It's his rock of ages. But there he is, kind of, and not only sat there way down in fifth, but sometimes struggling to keep that position, isn't he?
That's it. He's been, if we sort of cut across to Ash, he's been sort of, he's been in a battle with Timo for a while, hasn't he? Has Ash? So it's been been a close one for him. But I think, as we, hang on, it's going to come across your screen. But we've got Luke King having a bit of a dig, I believe, at Tony Norgran here. Wait for it, Stu. It's coming your way.
He's having a nibble.
I believe that's Tony, then.
Yeah, it is. And he's having a nibble. Obviously, we're not in a position here at all where anybody's going to be lapping anyone, I feel. So this is certainly not a blue flag situation.
No, definitely not. This is for position, this.
Absolutely, and yeah, Luke, who's had a steady race. I think his position probably belies where he's probably feels like he should be. It's a tight field, though, isn't it? And I think pit stop strategy has had something to do with it.
I think so. Yeah, I think because obviously Luke was fighting much nearer sort of the top of that mid pack, and I think going that one lap longer for his pit stop has cost him. It's put him to the back of the field. Everyone's come round and gone past him. So I think that one lap longer wasn't the right strategy for him to take. And he probably should have come in with the rest of them. But here he is having a bit of a scrap, which I'm sure he'll be happy with, because at the end of the day, they want a race. They don't just want to go round. They want to have a go at somebody.
And that's the thing. They're scrappers. And we talk about pit strategy, and Spa is a long lap. It's a long lap. Some of the other tracks that we're going to be visiting as part of this championship are not as long. Some are up there, but some are not. So we might find that some of the different abilities of these guys might suit, as is the case in most championships. Some different tracks will suit these different drivers better, won't they?
Oh, definitely. We will be going to some Australian tracks. I think Luke will do well at tracks like Brands, for example. That will be much more up his sort of alley and a bit more what he's used to. Those sort of touring car style tracks as opposed to a Grand Prix. So yeah, that'll be one to watch him at. But I do think it's only a matter of time here before he gets Tony. He's looking.
It does feel that way.
Looking a lot quicker through coming up through Eau Rouge. So I think he's going to have a go. Tony will have his foot to the floor to try and stay ahead of him.
I wonder what's going through Tony's mind now. So Tony is one of these drivers who, very experienced driver in the real world, definitely capable, races sim racing on occasion, doesn't he? As far as I understand it.
Brace yourself for the end of this straight, Stu. This is going to be one that makes you very happy.
And there we have it. Luke has, in fact, found that position back again.
It does look like Tony broke early there to me, because obviously Luke just went straight round the outside of him. It just looked like he'd slowed right down coming into that corner. In fact, I am now wondering if Tony's got some sort of issue, because he is going really slow. Luke has pulled out and pulled away. What is going on with Tony's car?
And this is the thing. Although it's sim racing, and by that what I mean is there's no physical damage. Clearly, Luke hasn't decided to head round to Tony's house and smash up his rig, but you can carry damage. You know, this is a racetrack. Things happen.
If he's hit a curb too hard, or one of the sausage curbs or something, there may be some damage to the underfloor, maybe, or some of the aero work. I don't know, but he's definitely slow compared to.
He's off the pace, isn't he?
Absolutely. He was keeping Luke behind him, but you can see there, Luke is gone.
He's away up the road, as you say. He's decided that this isn't for him anymore, and he wants to scrap slightly further up.
It was fun, but I'm gone now. Bye.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for the rumba, but I'm off now to tango with someone else, and that's essentially him done for the evening, and he's off to pick a fight with someone else, which is fair enough. But we are starting to head into the last quartile of the race, really,
I believe
and
so.
I would be very interested to know what the audience think the final placement is going to be. So, what do you think at home?
I'd agree.
What do
Drop
you
that in
think is going to
chat.
be?
Let us know. I think
Yeah.
everyone's going to be with me for the winner. Uh, so I think that one is set, but they're still fighting here. As we see, is that Ash? I believe that's Ash Marshall, isn't it, in the Mercedes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Chasing down Timo, so he's found some pace.
And this could all be part of that master plan that we were talking about earlier on. As we get further and further towards that checkered flag, we could well see some of the greater laid plans of these individuals start to lay out in front of us. As they also got to remember that they're getting used to the platform and they're getting used to the cars as well. So for some of these guys, this is going to be the first time they've been out on iRacing in some of these cars. So it might even be the point that 20, 30 laps in, if you count qualifying and a bit of practice as well, that they're starting to understand just where they can push, where they need to hold back, and that's before you even consider the track that they're on.
That's it.
Which
Just
is why
we pack up and go to the next one.
Exactly. It's a cruel mistress, is motorsport, but we are getting there to the point where they're going to get used to Spa, and then like you say, we're off to the next one.
I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing, Stu, but Luke King is gaining on Ash Marshall. You can see him coming through camera shot behind Ash here. I think Luke could be on the back of Ash in the next few laps if Ash doesn't get his foot down.
And there is time. There is time.
Time.
If Luke keeps this pace up, there is enough left in this race for him to find himself in a very, very different position to the one he might have found himself in around about 3 or 4 laps ago.
There's definitely an issue here because Ash Marshall is pitting at the end of that lap, which sends Luke King through. Luke will be happy. Just
Luke
answering
will be very happy.
Answering your question as well there, Stu. We've got Scotty in the chat saying he thought Bart would win. Wasn't far off. Bart is currently second, don't forget. So that's it wasn't far off. Defiant saying Gordie because Tax said earlier. What can I say? I just knew. If only I could put money on this, eh?
You foresaw it in the tea leaves that you just knew Gordie was gonna stretch out in front, and this is why it's so important for those of you watching at home. This is why it's so important that if you do have the free time, that you watch right from the beginning at free practice, because you can actually start to tell quite a lot with how they approach laps and how they approach the course in free practice, don't they? Because you can start to see just where they're going to struggle, won't you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, having said that, Gordie didn't go out in practice, did he? He just sat himself in the pit lane, quietly confident.
Yeah.
I think the word that people would use is smug. Smug in what he was doing, knowing that he was going to be quick.
He does have the advantage where he is a very, very accomplished sim racer. So he does have that advantage, of course, where his advantages aren't necessarily with some of the other guys, is that in terms of racecraft, he's not spent as much time racing in the real world. So it's interesting to see where that might make an impact, because what you make up in sim racing experience, you might lack in general race experience. So there's a huge array of talent, there's a huge array of different experience levels, huge array of different disciplines in here as well. So
exactly. Yeah, I don't think he's going to have it all his own way, though. He's had it all his own way for this race, but we know there are 2 drivers out there that will be coming back to this series who are as experienced as Gordie, and they're not going to let him just run away with this. I mean, Pierre-Louis Chauvet also races for R8G, and he will know Gordie really, really well. And I know Pierre wanted to be here, but he is currently on F3 duties elsewhere at the moment. So when he is free, he will be here, and he will probably want to stomp his authority all over Gordie.
And this is the thing: you've got teammates from sim racing worlds coming together and clashing in the Blue Streak esports sim racing championship. You've got individuals who would never meet in the real world coming together and racing and being able to pit themselves against each other from all corners of the world. Obviously, we've got individuals from the United Kingdom. We've got individuals from as far afield as Australia, which I believe is a small island on the other side of the planet.
So they say.
But then we've got, I think that's fair to say. And we did talk to Luke King, who is currently racing in the Super Cheap TCR Australia Championship. He's actually currently sitting in second place, which is not bad at all by anyone's standards. That interview will be going out. One heck of a driver, really is. And also interesting to note that it's not only is it his rookie season with us here at the Blue Streak Sim Racing Esports Championship, it's also his rookie season in TCR, really. So he's doing pretty well considering both here and in the real world. So many congratulations to him. But he does talk about the impact that sim racing and using sims has on his real world ability as well. So his interview that will be going live across Is It Fast in the next week or so is definitely worth a watch. So make sure you do head over to Is It Fast. Certainly the YouTube channel, click that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that little bell, which means you will be notified when a new piece of video content goes live. Be warned, we do release quite a bit. So if you're into motorsport, if you're into chat, if you're into all sorts of weird and wonderful things, as we go out about in the world to bring you some incredible behind the scenes as well as live motorsport from both the real world and the cyber world and the sim world, then make sure you head over there and subscribe. But it's amazing how many of these drivers use sims to compete against each other, but also compete against themselves so that when they go back into their real cars, right, Liam, they can have a distinct advantage.
I think these days, most drivers, if not all, use sim. You have to. It's just part of your training. So when you're not in the car, especially during the off-season, you can keep those reactions. You can keep yourself sort of fresh with tracks and fresh with the car and so on and so forth. So those that don't use sort of sim programs and simulators these days, I think, are probably behind, especially behind the likes that do. So I think it's just part and parcel of racing these days. You have to be au fait with a sim in some way. I know all the guys that are here. Yes, some have got more sim experience than others, but most of them will have had sim experience in some way or another.
And it makes a huge difference. And we see all sorts of varying degrees of sim rig, but the only sims and sim rigs and sim races that we're interested right now are the chaps out there on track, and we're getting very, very close to a conclusion to this first race. And
somebody's just pointed out in chat, actually, was it Valentino Rossi a few years ago who learned the entire track on a game because he'd never been there before?
Il Dottore did very well.
There you go.
He's had not a bad career. It's good enough for him. It's good enough for everybody, I imagine. So
another guy who is annoyingly likable. You can't help but like him.
Yeah, I've never met him, but I have it on good authority that he's an extraordinarily lovely human being to be around.
I think it's the same thing with Sebastian Vettel, isn't it? He went through a period where no one could stand him, and now I think the entire world loves the man. So
nobody likes a winner. I think this is what it comes down to.
I don't know what it is. When you're looking at Formula One, when they're winning, I know we said no swears, so we're not going to go down that, but they're not very likable. Just say, not very likable people. I think it takes losing to give them a bit of humility.
Well, that's the thing. Not to get too philosophical, but losing gives your approach and your general dimension a different feel. I'm led to believe. But Gordie is speeding up at the end of this race. He's not slowing down.
Finish with a flourish. He's not slowing down. God, the gap difference. He's gone. He's just got us 12 seconds now.
Yeah, I think given we're entering the last few laps, I think it's fair to say that unless something triumphantly, and not to give him the commentator's curse, But unless something triumphantly, spectacularly bad happens, it's his to throw away. But what an absolute humdinger of a race! And that top three.
It's not what I was expecting. I'll be honest with you.
It isn't. It isn't. I was not ready for that. And what it does is it blows this championship, even after race one. If it stays the way it's looking, even after race one, blows the options wide open. Particularly, as you say, with those rather quick individuals coming to join us later on in the season as well. So.
I do think
what a season ahead.
I do think we're going to have some drivers that are not happy with how they've done here today. So I get a feeling that a lot of them will be wanting to practice and get extra time in ready for round 2 next week. Which, off the top of my head, I believe we're off to Brands next week. So
there you go.
That's going to favour the likes of Luke, for example. It's his sort of track. Ash has raced around there. Gordie has obviously raced around there, so I would expect him to go like the absolute clappers again. So yeah, it's going to be another quick week, and I would imagine Gordie will be keen to smash it again and pull out one hell of a lead.
Can you tell us if it's Brands GP or Brands Indy?
It's the Brands GP circuit.
There you go. Yeah. Suit these GT cars down to the ground as well.
Exactly.
So. A little bit longer, not looking at 50-second laps as you would be around the Indy circuit. So it's a little bit more length in there. And I
think people will be getting lapped on the Indy circuit quite quickly.
Yes, that would be quite the thing. But what a turn up! And so tell us at home, is this the top 3 that you thought were going to bring it home, or is this a surprise to you? Or even, do you know who any of these people are? And are you now interested in going and setting your Google afire and see what these chaps are up to away from Blue Streak? I can give you a clue. Doesn't matter. You need to stay glued to Blue Streak for the entire championship now, because even after race 1, it's all to play for. There's so much more to give, right?
Favourites. We know the chat's going to have their favourites. They're all going to be rooting for certain people. I know there are people watching on Facebook right now, and Gordie comes across the line, lights are flashing, smug as you like for his first win, bless him. He's going to be really chuffed with that. And we'll jump into chat in a minute and and see just how smug he may be.
There he goes. What I would like to call that a complete performance, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise.
Anyone fancy it? No, didn't think so.
That was a bold claim. I was worried about that.
That was some fantastic racing. The top 3 were pretty much out in a class of their own there, weren't they? They were gone.
Yeah.